don't know if you have noticed, I think you probably have, but in our society, there has been an assault on motherhood. It's an all-out assault. And this week, as I was preparing, I came across some things that I thought would just focus and let us know that it's not just some perception we have, but rather it is an intentional movement. One lady is reporting on an article written by an extreme feminist, and she says, being a stay-at-home mom is incomparable to being, the feminist is saying, being a stay-at-home mom is incomparable to being a self-sufficient working woman. That getting married, having children is the epitome of average, and therefore not worth recognition at all. And that it's impossible to be exceptional if you have a husband and kids. Folks, this is real. This is real, honest. Goes on to say, just because motherhood is hard doesn't mean that it has value. Now, can you imagine somebody saying that? Just because motherhood is hard doesn't mean that it has value. This implies hiring someone to care for your children is far superior to tending them yourself, and claims most women just morph into the role of wife and mother because it's easier than the alternatives. Like I say, if you're catching, what I'm doing here, I'm just giving you a sample. This is what's flying around. And this is what's being taught on our college campuses. This is what, especially if you get into the women's studies and things like that, this is the kind of stuff that is being put out there. First of all, feminists believe that stay-at-home mom stands in the way of ultimate gender equality. Isn't that? Ultimate gender equality. Why? Well, they say that the reason why it stands in the way is employers feel that women are more risky to hire them. And that's true. I mean, most women, when they get married, they will have kids, and that means time off from the work, and sometimes they leave the job and whatever. And I can tell you, in my wife's case, we got married. We had kids, 18 years. She was out of the workplace. Then I went to seminary, and she had to put me back to school, and she's had to support my preaching habit ever since. But the idea is that employers are going to see that, and it's a fact. The other thing they say is, with more women in the home, that means fewer women are working. And so that means that the workplace will continue to be male-dominated. Ain't it awful? Ain't it awful? Furthermore, they allege that stay-at-home moms, this is the honest-to-God truth. They're doing studies. Honest-to-God truth. They're saying that stay-at-home moms are less intelligent than working moms. Honest. Honest. I don't know. That this is having an effect is very clear, because in America, the birth rate has declined. You will notice that we peaked around 1965. In 1960, the birth rate was about 3.65 children per woman age 15 to 44. By 2013, it's down to 1.86. Now, here's the scary part of that number. The sustainable population, just to keep population even, is 2.12. Tell us anything? I will tell you, though, in my opinion, I think the greatest assault on motherhood is abortion. And what we have right now in America is that at the birth rate, roughly 25% of all pregnancies are aborted. 25%. So when you begin to think that says, oh, kids aren't worth it. Motherhood isn't worth it. The main reason that women give for getting an abortion are, it's going to interrupt my schooling, it's going to interrupt my career. Okay? Scary, scary stuff. Motherhood isn't worth it. It's an assault on motherhood. I took that article that I had, and I gave it to my 2 sisters and my wife, and then my 4 daughters. And I wanted to see how they would react to it, see if there would be a difference in the generations. And there was, but I was surprised. My sister and my wife read the article. My sister says, I think I feel vomit in my mouth. But they said, but they responded rather intellectually. Well, how are you going to keep the human race going if women don't have kids? And who's going to train these kids up? And when that was basically their reaction. My daughters, on the other hand, went absolutely ballistic. I mean, straight up and turned left. What do you mean calling me a dummy because I want to be a stay-at-home mom? I mean, it was a visceral explosion on what's going on. Now, I say that because I believe that it bodes well for us. That we have ladies who are stay-at-home mom who are intelligent enough to realize stupidity when they hear it.
Right.
Dumb. Just dumb. The truth is that what's going on in our world is that, especially from the liberal agenda, is to try and destroy the family. The reason is very simple. They are anti-God, and they understand if they're going to destroy Christianity, the way you destroy Christianity is not by attacking its theology or things like that. You destroy the Christian family. And if you destroy the Christian family, you can damage the Christian faith. And so there's an all-out attack. We're destroying our children through abortion. We're destroying motherhood by taking mom out of the home and putting her to work. And having other people raise their children. That way, if you think about that, their kids are getting not your values, but somebody else's values. And we destroy fatherhood. If you watch the sitcoms, if you watch anything on TV practically, you will rarely see a man who is wise and good and diligent. More often than not, the men, fatherhood is mocked by portraying them as buffoons or bullies and criminals. It's intentional, folks. It's intentional. Well, we're here to honor mothers. And so God has a better way.
Amen.
Right? He's got a better way. So let's talk about that. Let's honor our mothers and talk about what God has to say. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, we get the 5th commandment. Honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land that the Lord has given you. Something that most of us don't realize is that there's also a restatement of the 10 Commandments in Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy 5:16, we get this. Honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live long, that it may go well with you and with you in the land the Lord is giving you. Okay? Let's pull this commandment apart just a little bit. Okay? First of all, the word honor comes from the Hebrew word kaped. Kaped. What it means is to make weighty, to make heavy. And that means that the people carry weight. Okay? Not like me, but please, but they have influence, and that they are respected. We would probably use the term respect, but respect is not the same as honor, because honor carries with it the idea of a public affirmation. And so what we're talking about is, when we say honor your father and your mother, it means that they carry weight with you. The next thing we need to realize about this, to honor is more than to love. Think about this. We're supposed to love our neighbors, right? We're even supposed to love our enemies, right? Huh? But we're supposed to honor our father and mothers. And so we need to realize that we can love people that we disrespect. Have any of you ever been in a situation like that? I have, where I've been deeply loved and terribly disrespected at the same time. And so we have to be careful that when we start talking about our parents, it's not simply just a thing about love. It's about honor and respect that goes with it. It's the only command with a promise. Ephesians 6:13 brings this out. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for it's right. For this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Notice here that your well-being, notice that your prosperity, notice that being able to enjoy life has to do with how you treat your parents. It's the first commandment. It's a promise. You honor your parents and you'll enjoy long life and enjoy your time on earth. It's the only command that deals with our relationship and authority over us. You flip through all of those. This is the only one that does. You're supposed to honor your father and your mother. Now, I can tell you something. I've been around a long time. And one of the things that I have seen and just observed it, and we're actually seeing it more and more on the streets. Go to the streets of Flint and you can see it. That people who dishonor their parents have absolutely no respect for any authority. None. If you can't honor your mom and dad, you're never going to honor the judge. You're never going to honor the police officer. You're never going to honor your teachers.
Amen.
And so when we begin to take a look at this command, we begin to realize that what we are sitting here with is probably one of the most important foundations for societal peace and prosperity. If you don't honor your parents, we're going to see chaos develop. And you can see it on the streets of Flint. You can see it. Well, let's ask the question, how can we honor our mother? How can we honor? Well, first of all, we want to, as we've mentioned, we want to show them respect. That means the way we talk to them. One of the things that I have noted, and I noted this especially when I was substitute teaching, is that young people were taking more and more liberties, if I may use the term, on name calling and calling their parents or their mother and different ones filthy names. They get mad, they don't like what's going on, and so they talk to them in very rude and rough and oftentimes foul ways. That is dishonoring. And so when we begin talking about honoring your parents, I'm not saying that we're not going to become frustrated with them or even angry. I love my wife dearly. I respect her, but there are times when I get frustrated and angry with her, right? Come on. If you're going to live in relationship with people, you're going to have times that you think I get frustrated. You don't see her with me. Guys, you ever walked into the house and the covers are going bang, bang, bang? You say, what's wrong? And say, nothing. You know you're in trouble. But seriously, when you're in relationship, there are times when there are frustrations. But you deal with the frustrations with respect. My children are all grown now. But as they were growing up, I told my kids, I want you to understand something. You can say anything you need to say to me. Anything. There are just two rules when you say it. First of all, you have to say it at the right time. Just sometimes you just can't deal with issues and whatever going on. You got to say it at the right time. The second thing is you got to say it with respect. Okay? I'm telling you, I have become. You say, Pastor John, we hear this about you talking to people all the time. The answer is because we have become a foul-mouthed, disrespectful society. And unfortunately, some of us are beginning to think it's normal, and it's not. It's sinful. And it destroys people, and it destroys communities. The way we talk to them. Another thing to do is brag on them. Brag on them a little bit. You honor people when you call attention to their sacrifices. Charlie did that this morning. We talked about it long. Remember my mom. Things got tough for Mom and Dad when we were... Mom and Dad had 4 of us in 5 years, a total of 6. And so things got a little tough. Dad worked 2 jobs. And for a time, Mom went to work as the night supervisor at a hospital. She was an RN. And I remember Mom coming home, 7 o'clock, getting us breakfast, sending us off to school. Then she'd go to bed and sleep from maybe 9 until 3. Get up, take care of us kids, get supper, whatever. Because of that, she'd put us to bed at 8 o'clock and sleep till about 10 and then head into work and do it again, 11 to 7. Moms do that. A story was told about a little boy. They were in math class. And they were doing division and dividing things up. And the teacher asked the question, well, listen, you're there at the house, and you've got 10 people there, and so how many pieces of pie would you cut? And the little boy said, 9. He said, 9? How can you have 9? There's 10 people there. He said, yeah, Mom would say she didn't want any. Tell those stories. Tell those stories. I had another funeral this week. One of the things that I know from experience comforts people and helps ease the pain of grief is telling stories. And we damage ourselves and we hinder our grief by not telling the stories of our parents and their sacrifices and their struggles. Because in it, it shows their love. It guides us on the way. And so, call attention to their sacrifices. Take care of them in their old age. This is a tough issue. My generation right now is what we're referring to as the sandwich generation. Our parents are older and in many cases needing help. Oftentimes they can't live alone or things like that. And yet we're also young enough that many of us have kids that we're still raising, and you get jammed into this and you get sandwiched between them. Taking care of them in their old age is probably one of the most difficult situations that I have seen families face in the church. And I see it all the time, and I will tell you, I see no easy solutions. None. Because we want our parents to have as much independence as they have, and yet there come times when we have to take the car keys away. There come time when they have to put them in assisted living. There comes time when we have to do those things. And too many people feel like that they dishonor their parents when they have to make those decisions. The answer is no. You love them and you're respecting them, because what you're doing is you are protecting them when they really, in many respects, are unable to protect and care for themselves. Now, the problem that I see, and this is where the honoring and respect comes into clashes. Kids are trying to do the best they can for their parents. And many times, parents resist their attempts at help. I got a call from my sister Monday. John, I just took Mom home from the doctor, and she's got pneumonia. Okay. Is she going to be in the hospital? No, she'll be at home. She'll be fine. But my sister is an RN well up in medical hierarchy. And she said, John, I told her 3 weeks ago to make a call to go to the doctor and get in there, and I'd take her. Well, I don't want to, and whatever. And she got worse, and she got worse, and she got worse. Finally, on Sunday, Deb said to Mom, have you called the doctor? I don't want to call, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, then I'm calling. Well, she called, and Mom's got pneumonia, and it's a lot worse than it would have been if Mom would have just listened. Okay. Now, it's at this point you want to scream and say, Mom, will you please listen to me? Been there, done that, right? Huh? You want to do that. But the problem is, there's honor. And like I said to my kids, and I give the same rule to myself, I can say anything I can to my mother, but I need to say it at the right time, and I need to say it with respect. I think it also sets a goal for us, those of us, when I looked in here, I couldn't believe the number of mothers that are over 70 years old here.
Quit rubbing it in.
No, I'm impressed. You survived your kids. But the truth is, it's not going to be long, and it's going to be us. And I think that maybe what we need to do as traveling to work through that, we need to begin to realize what it was and give our kids credit for having our best interest at heart and cooperating with them instead of fighting with them. Guys, that means when your wife says you need to go talk to the doctor, listen.
And do it.
Wives, when your husband says, I think you need to see a doctor, you need to listen.
And do it.
See, we got best interest at heart. But too often, it's nothing but old, stubborn pride. It's nothing but old, stubborn pride. And in the end, we're the ones that get hurt. Proverbs 23:25 22 was our scripture reading, and it says that we are to listen to our parents and take care of them. In Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13, is a really interesting teaching of Jesus. What was going on is that he was talking about how that they're taking their traditions and they're setting aside the law of God. And one of the things he pointed out, he said that if a guy says to his mom and dad, well, I gave what anything that you would have profited me, I gave it to the temple. I put it in the church. And he said, you're bound by that oath, you're supposed to do that. He said, the scripture says, honor your father and your mother. How can you let people off the hook like that? Set aside that. And he called them out because they weren't taking care of, and they were actually using the church to get around taking care of their parents. So we want to be aware of that. I've been a youth pastor before I was a senior pastor. And when I was doing youth conventions and things like that, often one of the sermons would be honor your father and your mother to the young people. And what was interesting to me is that every time I preached it at a youth convention, I had young people come up to me and say, Pastor John, my dad molested me. I hate him. How can I honor him? I can't even love him. Pastor John, my mom is so controlling. She won't let me do anything. She won't listen anywhere. And I have a hard time loving her, much less honoring her. How am I going to deal? How am I going to honor that? I began to think about that, and I began to realize something. You show me a kid that was raised by mom and dad, had him in church, did their best to raise him right, taught him right from wrong, and yet let that kid go bad. And you know what people say? Well, those parents must have done something wrong. Right? Come on. Parents must have done something. Never think. I mean, for some reason or another, we can raise our kids to do that. They can make dumb decisions and it's our fault. But it is. I also observed that there were people who came from very dysfunctional homes and who would turn out to be good and wonderful people. And people would say, well, his daddy was a drunk and his mommy was violent, but they must have done something wrong because he sure turned out good. And I began to realize something. The best way to honor your mother is to be a good person yourself.
Right.
That's the best way to honor them. Be a good person yourself. In the last couplet of our opening reading says this: may your father and mother be glad. May she who gave you birth rejoice. You see, the best way to honor your mother and father is to be a good person. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we come before your throne this day, we want to thank you for our mothers. We want to thank you for the way that you've blessed us. We want to